Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Ayurveda and Women's Health Podcast, an evolution to your higher self. This is Harmony, your podcast host. Today, I am so I was going for a walk and I do a lot of thinking on my walks, and I was thinking about this chapter of life and how I am consciously doing it different. And by this chapter of life, I mean my 40s. I have had so many conversations with women who are approaching their 40s or are mid to late 40s and even going into their 50s. And there's been this sort of underlying theme of sort of working out who they actually are finally, So I want to talk to you about one of the most beautiful and misunderstood chapters of a woman's life, and that is this midlife phase, right? So if you're in your 40s, and if you're like a lot of the women I have spoken to, you might feel like you're supposed to have it all figured out by now. Like the woman you're going to be should already be formed. Like this is the decade where you just execute on the life that you have already built. But I'm here to tell you something completely different. Your is are not the decade of completion by far. Your fears are the decades of really stepping into your higher self, into your becoming. And the woman you're becoming is not who you thought she would be. And that is so powerful because she is more powerful, more honest, and more unapologetically herself than you could have imagined. There is this cultural narrative about what your 40s should be like, right? You should be settled, secure. You should know who you are. You should have your career sorted, your relationships figured out, your body accepted. You should be past all of the drama in life, past the searching, past the becoming. But that's a lie. And I think it's one of the most damaging lies we tell women, because your 40s are not about being finished. Your 40s are about finally having enough self-knowledge, enough boundary strength, enough wisdom, and enough stop caring what other people think about to actually become who you've always been underneath, where in the past you've been maybe trying to keep up to society's expectations. You've been a little bit shy about voicing your opinion or letting people see the real you. In your 20s and even your 30s, you were still trying to fit into shapes that were handed to you. You were learning the rules. You were building something. You were becoming a certain kind of woman, the one that made sense given your circumstances. But in your 40s, something it shifts. And I heard this so much by women who were in their 40s. I have a lot of friends who are older than me. I'm usually, like, traditionally was the baby of the group. And so I would always listen to their wisdom, and they would always be telling me that, when you get into your 40s and 50s, something just shifts. You stop caring so much what people think and so on. And you slow down and you take a little bit more time to appreciate the life you're in, and you feel like you're actually sometimes living for the first time. But then there's this mix of feeling that and then the hormonal shifts that can create a whole nother layer to those emotions. So it can feel a little bit up and down. And it wasn't actually until I turned 40, 41, 42 that I really understood what these women had been telling me for years, because something inside you, honestly, it does shift. And it's not that you suddenly stop caring. It's not that you finally have enough evidence or enough lived experience or enough heartbreak and joy and failure and success to know what's actually true. It's just that women know who she is and what her truth is. And they know that they are a force. They sort of step into this power, this different layer and level of confidence. So what really changes in your 40s? Well, we know that our bodies do change. Yes, aging is inevitable. Shifts in our bodies change. We all know that. And it's real. And some of it is hard. Despite what people tell you about aging gracefully, it can be hard. But here's what else changes. Your tolerance for bullshit drops to zero or close to zero. You stop performing, not because you stop caring about people, but you care more deeply than ever. You actually stop performing versions of yourself that aren't true. And you want people to know the real you because you care. You stop people pleasing in the ways that hollow you out. You stop saying yes to things that drain you. You stop compromising your values to make other people comfortable. And no, you don't do all of this at once. And sometimes it's harder for other people, some people than other people. We're still learning, we're still evolving, but you kind of just get to this point where these shifts just naturally happen. And this can sometimes look really jarring from the outside, actually. People might say that you've become difficult or less accommodating, more selfish, more opinionated. But what they're really saying is you've stopped shrinking, and they've taken offense to that. Because when you were trying to please everyone else and you had no boundaries, of course you were easy to be around because you're a pushover. Now you are actually becoming and stepping into yourself and you've stopped shrinking. That can be threatening for some people. But for the right people, it is amazing. And they see you and they are drawn to your energy and they're like, yes, I want to be in the room with women like you. In your 40s, your boundaries, they just become stronger and people respect you because they feel honesty when you have those boundaries. Because you have finally learned the cost of not having them, right? You've seen what happens when you say yes to everything that you don't want to. You've felt the weight of carrying things that aren't yours to carry. And you're done. Your discernment, it gets sharper. We start to tap into the higher intellect. In Ayurveda, we call it the buddhi mind, this higher intellect, our discerning mind. And you can feel in your bones what serves you and what doesn't. And you're not afraid to articulate that. You start to realize what relationships are nourishing and which ones are draining, and you're not afraid to let those go. You understand what work has meaning and what's just paying the bills. And sometimes you just need to pay the bills and you accept that, but you go and you find other things that nourish your soul because you know that that is an important aspect of your health in midlife, is soul nourishment. You know what's aligned and what's a compromise you made 10 years ago that no longer makes sense. And all of a sudden you've been like putting up with it for say 10 years. And you're like, you know what? No, I am done with it. I am done with it because you step into this newfound power or you've sort of dug it out and you're letting yourself just shine as who you truly are. And you act on your knowing, not perfectly and not always without fear. We're humans. We don't turn into these super maiden humans. But we have this deeper knowing and confidence, and we're not always dictated by the fear in our mind. And so here is what I see now when I look at women in their 40s who have done the inner work. And you can tell the women who really step into this space, who have done or are doing the inner work, this self-study. They know themselves, not in that theatrical or theory sort of way where you've read the books and maybe you've even done a few of the worksheets, but they know themselves from lived experience. They know their patterns, they know their edges, and they know what they can and can't do. They're not apologizing for taking up space anymore. They're not making themselves smaller so other people feel comfortable around them. They're not abandoning themselves in relationships. They're not accepting crumbs and calling it love. They've stopped waiting for permission to be successful, permission to leave, permission to rest, permission to want something different, permission to change their mind. And that is so magnetic. This is powerful. This is the woman who knows what she wants and is willing to do the work to get it. The 40s woman is not trying to be liked. She's trying to be real. And the people who are meant to be in her life, they're drawn to that. They trust it and they respect it. Now, I'm not going to pretend it's all easy. Doing the work, whatever that may mean to you, isn't always easy. It's work. Because becoming who you actually are requires grieving who you thought you would be. There are things you let go of in your life, dreams that don't fit anymore, versions of yourself that served you once but don't anymore, people who are important but just aren't aligned with you anymore, your values, the belief that you have infinite time. The grief is real. And it's important and it's part of the becoming. But on the other side of that grief is freedom. Because when you stop trying to be the woman you thought you should be, you get to be the woman you actually are. And that woman, she's so much more interesting and much more powerful, so much more alive. So ladies, if you are listening, if you are in your 40s, mid-30s, 60s even, and you're feeling the shift, I want you to know that this is beautiful. You're not falling apart. You are coming together. If you're starting to say no to things that don't serve you, you're not becoming difficult. You're becoming honest. If you're questioning the life you built and wondering if it still fits, you're not having a crisis. You're having an awakening. The woman you're becoming in your 40s is a woman you've always been trying to become. So wholeheartedly step into her, step into your higher self. And if you would love a little guidance around this, to know you're not alone, and you haven't already, go grab a copy of my book, Ayurveda and the Alchemy of Her, because it is all about alchemizing her, growing into our higher selves. The link will be in the show notes. And if you know a wonderful woman in their mid-30s, their 40s, 50s, then do them a huge favor and share this episode with them. Namaste. Thank you so much for being here.